Hello, and welcome back to the Godly Playroom. My name is Ruth Lomax, and it's my privilege to be in this space, surrounded by all these amazing stories. I just wish you were here in the room with me, but this will have to do for now. We're excited about the possibilities as the vaccinations roll out and things happen that we might be able to see one another in person before too long. But for today, we have a story about giving and sharing. I wonder how you share. One of the ways we share here at First United is to welcome people into this space and then to give them time to learn and to grow and to come close to God. And so we want you to enjoy that gift as well. I wonder what you need to be ready today. What's been going on in your week? I spent some time doing childcare for my granddaughter, who isn't walking quite yet, but can certainly move pretty quickly. And she was missing her mom and her dad, one of whom was away at work and the other one who just started back to work this week. So many changes, even when you're only 9 months old, or 9 years old, or 90 years old. So let's take a deep breath together and be present in this space. You might choose to light a candle wherever you are as well. And if you need help with the matches, or perhaps you have a battery candle, which makes it even more safe, make sure you ask if it's okay. We remember that once there was someone who said such amazing things and did such wonderful things that people began to follow him. And the more they followed him, the more they heard him talk about a kingdom. But it wasn't like any kingdom they'd ever lived in, and it wasn't like any kingdom they'd ever visited. In fact, it wasn't like any kingdom they'd ever heard of. And so they wanted to know more about this kingdom of heaven, and he told them all kinds of parables. And then he knew he had to become a parable. And he turned towards Jerusalem for the last time. We're almost to that time of Holy Week when we remember that part of Jesus' life. But today we remember also that he is the light. And the light shines and surrounds us and accompanies us and enables us to see the path enough for us to follow. I'm going to put the candle back on the shelf so that I don't knock it over when I'm telling a story. I did knock a candle over at our Bible study group the other day. Fortunately, it never set any of the papers on fire. It landed upside down, and it still didn't change. Oh, a light can be very persistent. Well, I wonder if you're ready for a story. This is a story told in a godly play way, and it's used with permission. It's a story that takes place in the city of Jerusalem. And we couldn't fit the whole city into our room, but this will be enough to help us remember the city walls on the top of that hill. There's a bigger story about the city of Jerusalem that you'll get to hear in a few weeks. Once each year, the people of God go up to the city of Jerusalem to celebrate Passover, to remember how God brought the people through the waters into freedom. Jesus has come to Jerusalem for Passover many times, first with his family and now with his friends. We tell this story in the time of the color purple, that season of Lent, when we are all on our way to Jerusalem. Perhaps Jesus will show us the way. But this year is different. This year, Jesus sits in the temple. And he sits with the rabbis, and many people come to ask Jesus questions. This year is different. Jesus knows this year that his work is to come close to people. And when people come close to Jesus, lives change. But not everyone likes the changes that Jesus brings. One day Jesus was sitting in the temple teaching, and many people had come to ask him questions. But then Jesus asked them a question. He said, "Look, do you see that woman who is coming to the temple treasury? She put in 2 copper coins. Did you hear it? No. Now look, here is someone coming who is so rich he has someone help him carry all of his wealth. And you can hear it rolling and clinging and clanging as it falls into the treasury. And then Jesus asked his friends, I wonder who gave more, the old woman or the rich man? Some said, the rich man. But some said, the old woman, who gave all that she had. I wonder what will happen next. I wonder what part of this story you liked best. I wonder what part of this story is the most important part. I wonder if there's any part of this story we could leave out and still have all the story that we need. I wonder what part of this story is especially for you today. Or where you are in this story. I'm going to put the story away. And I might move the camera a little bit closer so that we can do our work together. You might like to think about what you would like to get out to do for your response to this story. Perhaps you need to pull out your wallet and have a look at what you have financially and what it would mean to give everything that you had. That sounds like a lot. You might rather just get some scissors or paper or some coloring things or painting things, perhaps some Lego to build something, or some clay to work with. Maybe you have some Play-Doh. Now there was the rich person and their helper. And the old woman. And the treasury box. Some of Jesus' friends and the crowds that gathered. I wonder what it was like to sit there and to listen. Some of you are spending a lot of time sitting and listening, whether that's at school or on Zoom or on some other screen application. I wonder what Jesus might have had to say. Hashtag follow me. And a bit of that city of Jerusalem. So, I have a few different things here for my response time. I got thinking a bit about giving and how the woman gave all that she had, even though they were two very small coins. We don't even make copper coins in Canada anymore. And some of our dollar bills now come in coin shape. And even though a dime is smaller than a nickel, it's still worth more. Which means that sometimes size of the gift is not what matters. I wonder how you give. I mean, it's not always easy to decide how much is enough for us to keep and how much to give away. When I was growing up, I got an allowance. And my parents encouraged me to think about that allowance as what I keep for the things that I wanted or needed, mostly needed, and how much I would give away to someone else, and how much I would put away to save for the future. I think they hoped I would grow up with much better financial or money management habits than I probably have. But that's a helpful way sometimes to think. A percentage that we save, and lots of people will say at least 10%. And I would say then we need to give that much away as well, at least 10%. Sometimes churches call that a tithe. Some of the Muslim people give away 12% or more. And then what do I need to live on? What's enough? That's a big question. And sometimes it feels like the little bit that we have to give doesn't amount to very much. But when we put it together with what others have, it can make a big difference. There's this book here called Mission and Service for Kids. And it reminds us of some of the places that our money goes to make life a little better for people in other parts of the world and here in Canada. There are all kinds of stories in here about the difference your sharing can make. All the way from making breakfast for kids that are on their way to school, to helping people buy livestock or finance new business starts, get an education, have clean drinking water, a bicycle so that a minister can go from place to place in their congregation, healthcare, access to things that we take for granted. So you might do some thinking in your response time. You might make a list of all the things that you have. And I wonder how much of that you really need. The toy boxes in our house always seem to accumulate far too many things. And things that we didn't always use. You might want to try to make something to carry your money in. Maybe you have a wallet or a purse already. But I came across this pattern, and you can use a piece of felt. You could use a piece of cloth if you want. Get someone to help you hem the edges or sew them by hand. If you have a bigger piece of cloth, all you need to do is find something round. And you can put that on your cloth and trace it and then cut it out. And then we need to make some cuts around the outside edge. So I'm just going to fold it like that, because then I can make a little bit of a hole, like that. And I'm going to make a few of those around the outside edge. Try to make them about the same size. Oops, I think we got a little bigger on that one. Mostly they need to be big enough to pull a string through. You might want to find a piece of yarn. I found some ribbon. So I'm making the holes a little bit bigger than I might if I was just putting a piece of yarn through. I want to try to stay the same distance. Oop, that one's really small. Try and stay the same distance from the edge, although I wander a little bit. If you want it to be more exact, you could use a bit of ruler or something to mark the holes before you cut them. Sometimes it isn't until we start paying attention to what we do have, we realize just how much there is. And how much we sometimes take for granted. wonder if Jesus asked you that question about who gave more. I wonder what you would say. The rich man or the old woman? So there's what it looks like with the holes cut. And then I'm going to take my ribbon and I'm going to run it through the holes. So I come up through one and down through the next one. And I didn't cut a strand, so I wasn't sure how long it needed to be. I'll keep going all the way around. If your hole's big enough, you won't need to use a needle to help you thread it. So, even a piece of yarn. You can be kind of particular maybe if you don't want your ribbon to twist. I'm not very good about that apparently. But there we go. So then I'm going to make sure I have enough off the end. I might even those up a little bit, just pull it through a little bit more, like that, and then I'm going to tie these, like that good old balloon tie. Take the two ends, tie it around my finger, and then pull the ends through the loop. Slide my finger out so I don't tie my finger into it. And then I can make a little pouch. And if I did a better job with the holes, it would drawstring up better, but I could put my money inside that pouch. And then I could do another quick balloon tie, only not pull it all the way through, and have a bit of a purse. But I thought of something else we could do too with this. I don't know if you've ever done rubbings before, but you can take something that's got a texture on it, like this toonie, and put it under the page, and then you just take your pencil and run over top, and you'll get a pattern. See if we can make our caribou here. And you can do that with almost anything. I've done it with leaves. I've done it on different things, rocks. Sometimes people even do them on gravestones to get the pattern. Sometimes they call them etchings. But that's something else you can do. And we've been taking some time each week in prayer. I wonder what God would like us to do with that money. Let's just take a moment. We've been experimenting with praying in color. So I'm going to invite you. I'm going to use my markers for this so you can see it a little bit better. And I'm feeling a little purple in this time of the color purple. So you can trace your hand. On your piece of paper. And then somewhere in the palm of your hand, write your name for God. Whatever name you like to use. Because God has many, many names. And then you might like to think of 5 people that you want to pray for. Or maybe 5 things you'd like to change in the world somehow, to make the world a better place. Not just things like, make it so that there's more ice cream or more dessert first and less vegetables. The things that might make it really better. Not just more like how I would like it. And you might put a person's name in each of your fingers. Or if you have more than 5 people that you want to pray for, you could put more than one name in the finger. If you're thinking about 5 things you might like to change, you could put that thing, a picture or a word or 2 to remind you of that. And then think about how you can use your hands or your resources to help those changes come about. We watched a movie a little while ago for one of our study groups called Water. And there were a group of women there called widows. That's what we call a woman in our culture anyways, a woman whose husband has died. And in some cultures, women are married at a very early age. In this culture, even when they're only 9 or 10 years old, some of those girls were being married. And then when their husband died, they became a widow, and remarriage, getting married again, wasn't allowed. It's gotten a little bit better, but often when a partner or a spouse dies, a woman does not do as well financially as her husband might have done. And so I would pray for a better balance for all of those people, but widows especially, who find themselves alone and struggling to make ends meet. But I would also be very thankful, because many of those people have been the most generous people in my experience. It's like the less people have sometimes, the more willing they are to share it. And then you might like to do some doodling around that while you think about that prayer. Remember some of those doodles we came up with before. Circles and squares and squiggly lines and triangles and crisscrosses and outlines, shadows and wiggles and leaves and curlicues. And then I think I would pray for some of the people that I know who are change makers. And I'm not sure what to call them. Sometimes we call them movers and shakers or activists. Maybe just people who make a difference. willing to lend a helping hand and do what they can do. I often think about that woman who gave all that she had, and how that it might have affected Jesus. I think he knew by the time he saw her do that, that his own life was coming to a precarious place. And I like to think she gave him some courage. Maybe inspired him a little bit. I know there are times in my life when I have been inspired by very generous people. So maybe that'll be my other prayer. For generosity, both given and received. And the ripples that sometimes sends out. Sometimes in ways that I'm not even aware. And then I think I would pray for the birds. For the geese that are coming back and that long journey that they make every year. For all the little birds that stay here year round and are just trying to find something to eat while they get their nests ready. Maybe for other people who are traveling on a long and winding trip, like we are on this way to Jerusalem. And sometimes all we can see is the light just in front of us. Can't see the end or the destination, just enough to follow. And then I think I would pray for families. Families are a little bit like a spider web, right? All our relationships and how they connect and interconnect to other things. And sometimes things work really well and sometimes they don't. But every time we change something in our families, we touch the web and it jiggles out and reaches others. And I think about families that are looking after young children or children in school. I think about those children that are growing and changing and learning new things, and some of that's exciting and some of it's scary. And I pray for adult children who are still trying to figure out what it means to be an adult and not just hear the voices of their parents, whether they were helpful or not helpful. And I pray for people that are getting older in those families and what that means for family dynamics when the child becomes the caregiver. Or the parent still wants to retain some independence. and it's important that they do. And so all of these things, loving God, loving and generous God, I offer to you. Amen. Well, I don't have much of a feast again. I do have some water. And I seem to have made a pretty good mess here. I have lots of things spread out. So it might take me a while to tidy up my work. And while I'm doing that, you might pause the video and do your work or share some prayers with people in your household. And when you're ready, come on back and we'll change the light together. So, the end of our time together comes so quickly some days. Hard to imagine. And we'll be getting used to this daylight saving time that we're on now, which means it's dark again a little bit longer in the morning, but light so much later in the day. I wonder how you will share this week and with whom. Watch what happens when I change the light, so that it isn't just in this one place or time, but it can spread out and share itself with you, wherever you are, and whatever this week holds. God bless. Be well. And look after one another until we meet again. Thanks for taking the time to be part of the circle.